So once the diagnosis was done, then the treatment was started, but still the treatment or the effect that was there, it used to be to some extent possible, but it was not completely gone. So I thought of something to be added, addition to the allopathic drugs that we use. So then I just went in for some yoga sessions through the Art of Living and Patanjali Yoga, and I used to practice them. When I was practicing, because they always taught yoga for a normal person, but I myself was a person who had disease, and there was no modification, because even the yoga therapist or yoga teacher couldn't know what exactly the modifications that they have to do. Then I thought, since that anatomy was there in my mind, the stretching was there, biomechanics, as an orthopedic surgeon, I could know much of biomechanics. So little bit of modifications which the proper training was given in these yoga sessions, I thought that would, for preventing. So if you just overstretch or do something overstretched, overdone, it might injure for a person who is already suffering. So I used to have a little bit of modifications, what they used to teach me. And slowly I just learned how the modifications could be done, because these modifications, no yoga therapist can learn this unless he knows about the medicine. Then I thought, and there were some exercises therapies which have been well known in our allopathic treatment. So either the physiotherapy, I myself was a physiotherapy principal for almost 6 years. Then I was very much involved in the rehabilitation activities, started a department of occupational therapy, I started college also. So I was instrumental in getting an artificial limb center, so rehabilitation center. So my bent of mind was towards rehabilitation and the biomechanics which is involved in the musculoskeletal system. With that background, I used to have a little bit of modifications what the teachers teach me, and that slowly gave me a lot of benefit. So then there was an opportunity for me to speak on an international forum. So that was the topic, with the scheme topic was yoga as therapy for disorders. So till now the yoga, they thought it is a science of living, a way of living. But this topic what they chose maybe 2 years back in Patanjali University, colleagues who is also doing a lot of this integrated medicine related to the Hansen's this one elephantiasis. So he introduced me to that, and then they invited me because it was something related to that. Then I spoke to that and met Dayadeepananda Swamiji, and I also wanted to visit Konkan, so as part of my travel, because I am a Ramakrishnaite by from the beginning, Ramakrishna mission. So wherever I go, if there are some missions or ashrams, I make it a point to visit and get the blessings from the Swamis there. So that was an idea which was there, and it was well appreciated, because nobody thought an orthopedic surgeon could speak on yoga and then have a modified yoga. I said the normal yoga which we teach has to have a little bit of modification depending on the person's disease, and these modifications we could make out or do it so that the yoga itself doesn't hurt him. In fact, it supports his health. So that was the idea, and then started thinking about it, and then formulated one presentation which I could make for those forum. So that was my introduction. So what I am now. So even though I am not a trainer or a teacher or a well-trained yoga therapist, but I know the basics of yoga. Now coming back to the musculoskeletal system, because orthopedic surgeon basically deals with musculoskeletal system. So musculoskeletal system is basically for mobility, movements and stability and the balancing. And of course it has got some part in endocrine system, especially the vitamin D or the calcium, mineral metabolism, magnesium. So all that are the storehouse. On the protection of vital organ, like a skull protecting the brain, chest protecting the lung, or the pelvis protecting the pelvic organs inside. So it also are other functions apart from mobility, stability and balancing. So if you want to keep any system healthy, first what we have to know is the function of that particular system. So if that function is well known and we have got to support that function, then automatically that particular system becomes healthy. So that was the musculoskeletal system. As we know, it is related to mobility, stability, and balancing. So if we can balance these three, so these are very important to have. So this is something like a motor vehicle, which we regularly do a servicing for alignment and balancing. So if the wheel alignment and balancing are good, then the smooth movement will be there of the vehicle. So in the similar mechanism, so this body should also have some amount of mobility, stability to maintain that balancing activity, so that that musculoskeletal system will live for much longer time. So that was the basic idea behind all this. And this search for, so most of this musculoskeletal system, if you see, so they can be divided into three different categories of disorders, like acute injuries, like fractures, sprains, or hematoma, so joint swellings. So they're all called acute injuries. For these acute injuries, the treatments are totally different. Maybe these acute injuries will occupy around less than 10% of the musculoskeletal system disorders. So next comes the subacute injuries, which after the acute injuries, so it just lasts a medium kind of a period. The treatment there is also a little different, but most of the musculoskeletal pathology what we see are chronic in nature. Almost I can say 60 to 70% of the disorders that we see in orthopedic outpatient or in the clinic, so they are related to chronic conditions, where we, as an orthopedic surgeon, or even in our training, we hardly give so much of importance for these chronic disorders. So we teach all our students related to the how to fix a fracture, so how to put nuts and bolts and rods and all that. So we spend most of the time in orthopedic training related to teaching of acute injuries. So I thought something has to be done for these chronic injuries, and this chronic injuries is the one which occupies a lot of wide differences, or almost occupies 6 to 70% of outpatient disorders. So basically, healing of any tissue depends on its structural anatomy, getting back the anatomy, whatever it was earlier. So just especially for musculoskeletal, so I will be just talking or focusing my talk basically on musculoskeletal system, muscles and bones. So we need to maintain the muscles and bone structure and tone and strength and stability or mobility of the joint. Joint has to be mobile. The structure, the muscle has to be in a good tone. So it should have a stretchability. It should not have any contractures or spasm. So that is retaining the structural anatomy. Second thing is the physiological factor, physiology. So mineral metabolism or the tones, the exchange of ions. So they also should be quite to be normal. Relaxation when it is required. So toning if it is required. So depending on that, physiology should also be there. Apart from these two, this medical profession, we mainly focus on the structural anatomy and physiological factors, and we try to correct those two. Rarely we take into account this emotional status and psychosocial status. I thought this yoga, especially the meditation and pranayama, so this adds on to this aspect of managing this musculoskeletal pathology or any system for that matter. So these two factors are not touched upon. And if you touch these two, maybe we get a more of a holistic kind of healing. So emotional status and the psychosocial status. And if these two are not touched, or the structural anatomy or physiology is not properly maintained, and the disease goes on chronically for many years, so then patients gets on to a psychological problem. So he gets depressed, he feels that the disease is not curable, then all kinds of things will start, and that becomes a psychosomatic disorders. So which is actually we are doing it, that is being, so patient is forced to get in because we are not targeting his holistic treatment. So we just target only about the structural anatomy. I was just going through some of the videos of this program itself, wherein the surgeon himself says we are just doing a patching work, we are just doing a dressing work, we are not making the structure to get back to its normal structural anatomy and physiology. Of course, we have to focus on these two aspects also, and in this the yoga definitely plays a major role. Now in acute injuries, I don't talk much about this. Mainly it will be of more of inflammation, promoting healing, restoring its function, and getting him back to an activity and prevent further injuries. So preventing injuries is basically in musculoskeletal system is maintaining the tone, maintaining the mobility and the stability of the joints. Now these, before we get into the musculoskeletal yoga or the therapy itself, we should understand one basic physiology of the human body. So if it comes to the bones, so there is something similar to a gravitational force. So which is the fundamental force of the entire earth. Like that, even in our human body, there are some principles, basic principles called as Wolff's law. So Wolff's law says the bone in a healthy person or an animal will adapt to the loads under which it is placed. That means the structure of that particular bone or a tissue depends on the function which is given to it. So bone is supposed to bear the load. So if the load is given, the structures remains in a healthy state. So if it is unloaded, so a patient takes a lot of rest, so doesn't work, so loads in an uneven manner. So that leads to a pathology. So the structure of a tissue depends on the function. So that's a basic law of Wolff's law. It's called as a Wolff's law, described by the Julius Wolff and so 18th. So it is one of the structural area which you have got to know about it. So the bone structure, the internal architecture of depends on the, so this trabeculae, so which is trabeculae are the fine bone, thin kind of a thing, which is like a honeycomb. Bone is like a honeycomb, especially at the ends. So these trabecular structures adapt to the secondary changes of external force that is applied to it. So if the force applied is more, the bone starts bitting or adding more cortical bone, and bone keeps on becoming stronger and stronger. So internal architecture depends on the force that is given. And the inverse is also true. So if the force is not given, so if the loading on a bone decreases and the bone becomes less and less dense and becomes weaker and weaker, so this lack of stimulus requires it continuous remodeling is not there. So then the bone becomes like a sponge and it just breaks. That is what we call as osteoporosis. So even if the fracture, if it is immobilized, not moved at all, so moving actually heals the tissue much better than not moving. Of course, it is a controlled movement, so that has to be done. So function has to be given to any tissue for it to heal, but that has to be a controlled function, especially when the injury phase. So that is what is the Wolff's law. Now the second important law is that is related to bone. So this is something called as a Davies law. So this Davies law is related to the structures like ligaments and soft tissues, muscles. These ligaments or soft tissues, when put under even a moderate degree of tension, and if that tension is unremitting, if it is left alone or just held in tension, so this tissue will elongate and additional material. So it just adds on because it is stretched out and additional structures are added on. So that will maintain, again, that length is maintained. So in contrary, so if that ligament is short, so if we keep all the ligaments, so we are always sitting, and when we are sitting, the hip joints are flexed, knee joints are flexed, again bent. So all the structures behind become shorter, the front structures become lengthened, and the posterior structures or behind structure become shorter. So if that shorter structures are left alone like that in a short time, then the structure slowly becomes shorter and shorter. Now if you want to lengthen, so if you want to stand up, the knee has to go for lengthening, standing, it has to become straight. So if it is contracted in behind area, so that will lead to a mechanical malalignment. That mechanical malalignment goes on for a longer duration when they start walking. So even the weight bearing shifts posteriorly because it is bent. The weight bearing shifts posteriorly. The amount of the area which the bone takes or the weight goes through becomes reduced. So more weight is transmitted in a very smaller area, and the bone becomes arthritic or this degenerates much earlier. So that is the importance of stretching and maintaining the biomechanical axis and the alignment of the tissue. And this yoga actually will help you in alignment and stretching, making the structures more stable. So that's why we should have a more mobile and stable soft tissue. So soft structure also changes. So soft structure, we have got a Davies law, and the bone architecture, so we have a Wolff's law. So these two are the fundamental physiological law which governs the musculoskeletal system. And if this is well understood, then you will be able to understand the importance of yoga. Now, always say most of the problems which musculoskeletal system by which they come is the pain. So that is the first and the foremost thing which brings one person in musculoskeletal pathology for an orthopedic advice. So if the pain actually is the pain, I never say pain is something which is a curse. It's actually a boon. So it is the greatest gift given by God. So if the pain were not to be there, people would have overused it and then injured it and got it removed. In fact, if you can remember a leprosy patient. So he doesn't have any pain sensation on his ends or the tips. So he just overuses it. Even if the injuries are there, even if cuts are there, he will not be able to make out because there is no sensation. So it gets infected, secondarily get infected, and the whole thing becomes gangrenous or infection. Or if he's smoking some beedies, so it just stops on burning, and even if it is burning on the other side, just keep smoking, and the distal area goes in for the gangrenous or burn. So he will not know because the pain is not there. So because the pain is there, he immediately just throws it off. That is why pain actually is a boon, the greatest boon given by God. So, but if it becomes more, then that becomes a problem. So we have got to have that kind of pain management. So pain has to be managed. So when it becomes severe, intolerable, it has to be brought down to a tolerable kind of a thing. As a musculoskeletal specialist, we always say, so pain is because of some inflammation, some infection, broken tissues or a broken bone. That is commonly what we say. We hardly give a little bit of importance for this malalignment and instability. So this malalignment of the structure and instability of a structure, so weakness of the structure can also cause pain. And it is here that we have got to do a realignment. We have got to devise some tests so that we know the malalignment and then align it. So once it is aligned, automatically biomechanics is retained and the weight transmission becomes normal and person becomes a little more normal. Then due to this chronicity of the problem, this I have told you, so that whatever the somatic problem that it has, the psychological aspects adds on and the whole disease becomes a psychosocial component. So whenever we are, especially when we are addressing a chronic disorder, we have got to address a part of it towards the psychology. Now yoga, if practiced regularly, so what does it do? So it gives a good mechanical stability. So it strengthens the tissues. So provides balance for proper functioning of musculoskeletal system apart from treating. So even the psychosocial component, psychological component. So this can be treated just by control of mind. So through the meditation and pranayam. So which will also adds on to a part of healing in musculoskeletal disorder. So that's why I just talk it as yoga is not just a way of maintaining health. It can be used even for treatment purpose, with little bit of modification, which even the yoga teachers should know. So that's why we have got to get in depth into this yoga therapy. Now these are some of the very commonly seen problems which we see regularly in our day-to-day outpatient. So like plantar fasciitis, so sole pain we commonly see, heel pain we commonly see, on the knee joint pain we commonly see, cervical neck pain, shoulder stiffness, and the tennis elbow pain that we see. These are something which are very common. So our OPD practice, if you see, I can say almost 50 to 60% of our OPD practice is only these 8 conditions. So most of these conditions, many people, they just go around, they get a lot of investigation, they get MRIs, get a lot of painkillers treated and physiotherapy being treated. Of course, all these treatments do provide some solace as long as those treatments are being taken, but it will not give you a long-standing recovery or recovery without the intervention of the drug or a therapy. So if you want to avoid all that, so we have got to keep them mobile and stable. So just if the time is there, we can go ahead and then one by one we can see. So maybe today I will just talk on one particular aspect. So if the time permits, we just keep moving, because the same talk when I went on and then started giving to my own students and colleagues here in JSS Medical College, I could do it for almost 7 sessions, because if we can go into the depth of the anatomy and physiology of each problem, only then we will be able to make out what is happening. Otherwise, just giving some exercises and leaving it off, so it will not It will not carry the principles behind the yoga therapy. So just to take up one aspect of it, this is what is called as a plantar fascia or plantar fasciitis. Plantar fascia is nothing but the structure or a fascia which is there. So behind this tissue, a white tissue which covers all the muscles behind. The foot is like an arch. So this arch is maintained by the string lower down. So there will be a string of fascia below, all along here. So only if this arch, like a Calcutta bridge, if you see the long hanging bridge, so it will be a parabola like that, and this has to be maintained. So this length, this has to be tightened, and that lower structure what we see is called as the plantar fascia. And if the muscle, there are so many muscles all around the foot, so which some muscles getting their origin from the foot itself and getting inserted to the toes, some muscles which are coming all the way from the leg and then traverse all along the toes. That means these long muscles which are coming from leg and then getting down to the foot, they are called as external muscle or extrinsic muscles. The muscles which are getting its origin from the foot itself and getting inserted to foot or toes inside, so these are called as intrinsic muscles. There are muscles in between each bone, each 5 bones there are muscles. So there are muscles within there. So there are muscles coming from there. So many muscles are there. And these muscles, if they are kept in a good tone, only then we'll be able to maintain this arch. So if there is any balance in any of these structures, that is the one which leads to some kind of changes in the posture, changes in the pressure distribution. So now, normally the pressure has to go through the heel and it just goes to the lateral part of the sole. So it goes to the second toe or the fifth toe, little toe, and then the great toe. So it is the heel which takes the maximum weight, and second will be the ball of the great toe and ball of the little toe. So middle part hardly takes, it never takes any weight because of this spring kind of or a parabola kind of a foot. So this structure has to be maintained. So first thing what I told you is maintaining the structure. So if you want to maintain this structure, these extrinsic muscles, these intrinsic muscles, they have to be maintained nicely. So if these two are well balanced, well aligned, then the plantar fasciitis automatically disappears. So in the acute phase, we need to protect it to some extent, maybe hydrotherapy, so hot water fermentation, hot water into salt and dipping it inside, reducing the inflammation by using ice packing, or reducing the weight which passes through the heel by using microcellular rubbers, footwear modifications, redistribution of the weight. Of course, they are all temporary methods that can be used during the acute phase. That means when the whole foot is burning or while the foot is painful. But that is not the solace. So why this has started? Because this problem has started because there is a imbalance in the extrinsic and intrinsic muscles. Unless these extrinsic intrinsic muscles are strengthened and balanced, so you will not have a permanent relief from the problem. So that's the area. So this usually we can be done just with some kind of therapies like this. So this is some exercise which we can do which moves. So with this we are moving each and every joint. So toe flexion and extension, ankle flexion and extension, foot and ankle rotations, so clockwise rotation, anti-clockwise rotation. So we have got muscles which are acting all along. So if you can see, all the muscles becomes very strong. So if you are doing inside, this becomes stronger. If you are doing outside, the outer muscle becomes stronger. So with these kind of exercises, that means we are developing the extrinsic muscles, we are developing the intrinsic muscles, and slowly the foot starts developing the stability or mobility. So this is free exercise without, because in the acute phase there will be a lot of pain. So this has to be done. So these exercises are called as static strengthening exercises or joint mobilization exercise. The full length has to be maintained, tone has to be maintained. So for this exercise will be, of course, this has been regularly taught in yoga sessions in Patanjali Yoga. So either we sit down or we just stretch out our leg, and these are called sukshma vyayamas. So before you go in for meditation and pranayam, these small muscles are stimulated, and then we go in for a major one, and then the pranayam and meditation. So this sukshma vyayama are related to foot problem. So each problem I am taking, So now I have taken up plantar fasciitis as a problem. Now I am trying to give you a relative modality of treatment for that. So something similar to that, so the strengthen. So plantar flexor. So that is an extrinsic muscle, that is a calf muscle which is flexing. Now the heel walking, so with this the anterior leg muscles will be strengthened. So this heel walking, internal walking, that is inverters, the foot which goes inside, inverter muscles such are developing. Then with extension, we are developing the extensor muscle. So this foot walking, this is what is called as a yoga walk. So this they used to do in even our Patanjali treatments or therapy which goes on in exercise therapy. So this especially this exercise will be, we are putting weight on that. So initially we are not putting weight. So that can be done during the initial acute phase of pain. So once that pain disappears, then you can go in for next stage. So I just usually, when I teach my patient, I call them, this is LKG exercise. Next, once you are good with that, then you promote yourself to the UKG exercise. Then you are good with that, then you have the next exercise. So you have the balancing exercise. A lot of other exercises are there. I'm not going into depth of that. So even the exercises or therapies what we prescribe to a person who is suffering also has to be phase wise. So only then he will be able to support us, or he will be able to happy doing it. Otherwise, with an extensive exercise, if we just teach in the initial phase itself and then say, so you are, so it causes pain and then further injures an already injured tissue, then he will not follow us. So we have got to give them what stage he is, what is the problem, and then advise him accordingly to the therapies. So these are two exercises which can be done, and then so that will give you a lot of advantage. Anirban, can I go ahead or just stop here because the want of time is there?
Sir, how much time do you have? How many slides?
No, I got a lot of things. I told, so many 8, 9 conditions are there. So every conditions there is explanation and the exercises. So I have just told you only one exercise now, one related to one problem, common problem like foot pain. And then I just keep on going one by one other areas. So if the time permits, I can just go another disease I can just cover. Or if it is not there, then we will have it in another session.
Sure, sir. I think Dr. Subrata, it's okay.
Yeah, at least you can finish in another 5 to 10 minutes.
Then this retrocalcaneal pain I will finish.
Sure.
And then stop there. I don't go to the osteoarthritis of the knee joint. I don't go into the back pain. Because I don't go to the shoulder pain or neck pain. I don't go into that. So we just cover only 2 conditions today.
Yes.
So maybe in the following days we can have other conditions, and we can repeat the physiology and anatomy during that time also. And then go straight away to that particular problem.
Sure.
Please. So is it okay? So I can just go ahead with the second one.
Second one, and we'll stop there. Then we'll have a Q&A session. Then we'll end, right? Okay.
Now the second most common that we see. So many people would have especially experienced the retrocalcaneal pain or the heel pain. The pain that comes here, so many will have even the big swelling in this area. So this swelling usually comes because of an excessive bone that is being formed there. So retrocalcaneal spur, we call it as a spur. So similar thing if you see plantar fascia, that is the sole if the person has got pain. So you can have something which is extending like this. So like a horn behind. This is not normal. This is abnormal. So even similar thing can happen even here in the front. So if the person has got a foot pain or a sole pain, what I described the earlier disorder, plantar fasciitis. So you can have a spur here. We call this as plantar spur. So this is a retrocalcaneal spur. So why these spurs develop? So these spurs develop, this is what is called as a traction enthesitis. Traction enthesitis means, so I told you the foot on the sole, there is a fascia which is attached. And if these muscles become weak and if this arch is not maintained, so this sole structure it starts stretching. So it just keeps on pulling. So it just pulls. So like a string, it just pulls. Whenever there is a continued pull on the bone, so since there is a force which is acting on the bone will body will start depositing. It tries to make it more stronger by putting more bone into that. More calcium deposition will happen. So wherever this attachment of the soft tissue is there, so new bone is formed and you start developing these spurs. So if you see a spur, that means there is the structure behind is tight. That's the meaning. So if that becomes very tight, so it's not, because whenever we walk, we just start walking with the heel strike. We strike the heel and then move forward. So when it is repeatedly hit on the ground, so that causes a repeated hitting. So pressure is happening. So the skin also becomes hard in that area. So bone is forming because the ligaments are being pulled the further. So this will lead to a lot of inflammation. So there will be stretch on the tenderness or swelling in this area. That is what is called as a retrocalcaneal pain or the retrocalcaneal bursa. So now the basic problem, what has happened? So this structure, this gastrocnemius, the calf muscle. So calf muscle has got two muscles. So one is the gastrocnemius muscle, other one is the soleus muscle. So these two join together and they form a common tendon, and that is the one which is getting inserted. The heel cord, if you just see behind it, there's a thick cord. In fact, this heel cord is the strongest tendon of the body. In fact, it is called as Achilles tendon. So it's got a little bit of story behind it. Achilles is a Greek warrior. These are very good sprinters. We could just run like anything and then kill people. So during the war. So and then the other person wants to slow him down. So they hit him on this tendon with the sword and cut this tendon off. So once this tendon is cut off, so you will not be able to sprint, because you need a push-up for the foot to move forward. So that's why this tendon is also called as the Achilles tendon. And that's the warrior's name has been given. So medicine has got a lot of these kind of stories. If we just get into the depth, it is very interesting. Now, what is the problem? Why this has happened? Because this Achilles tendon, whenever we sit, if you just see, we always keep our foot down. When we are sitting, foot is always down. So when the foot is down or the plantar flexed, so plantar foot is flexed. Now the structure behind, this is the heel cord behind. So this heel cord automatically becomes tightened out. Now what we have got to do, because of this common posture, or people who are wearing a long heel, so pointed heels, they just go on and automatically this long heel will be there. That will lead to tendon Achilles contracture. And if you see on the test those patient, so when you see this like that, normally the foot has to go almost 45 degrees behind. So if this is not possible, that means the people with retrocalcaneal pain, they'll be able to do only this 90 degrees. They cannot go almost 45 degrees. They cannot go because this structure is very tight. So they'll be lower down. So basically main problem, what is the problem? The tendon Achilles, the behind, the calf muscle has become tight. So we have got to stretch it out. So for that we can do some exercises so that we can stretch it out. So that is a stretching exercise. We can just do an extension. So that will stretch the tendon Achilles. So make it a little longer, and the plantar fascia also become longer. So we can do that. So this is another stretching exercise. So during this, you can just keep the knee straight, because this muscle comes from the femur on the thigh bone. So we can stretch it down. So 5 times or 10 times we can do. So just stand on the edge of the table or edge of the steps, and then keep stretching. So and keep that stretch for some time. So you have got to keep that stretch for some time and then relax. So whenever you are doing this, there will be a lot of pain that is experienced in the calf muscle. So if you are experiencing that stretch in this calf muscle, that means you are doing a proper exercise. Regularly, if you do this for 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then test it out. So if you are initially are able to have only this much with a force, now after 2 weeks you are getting up to this. Now after 4 weeks or 1 month, 2 months, you are able to get this. Once you get this kind of movement or reduced dorsiflexion, so foot you are able to get it up to this, then you yourself will feel the retrocalcaneal pain has disappeared. So that is how, so we have got to know the basic problem, where is the origin of the problem, and if this origin is targeted for treatment, then the relief will be much longer. Okay, anyone, is it okay? Then I will just go ahead. Time is up now.
Yes, sir. I think Dr. Subrata, you can take over.
Yes.
I will not go to the next one. Next is osteoarthritis of knee, which is quite common. So we will
It's
not talk about this. We'll just talk about in some other session.
Sir, it is very interesting. I think we will follow this up with another session where you can go a bit more detailed, perhaps, on all these conditions, and that will be exclusively on that. And perhaps we can keep it a little longer time also, maybe 45 minutes or 1 hour or so. We can keep it.
Yeah, I think it's such interesting dimensions of facing the pain and how to relieve it, going on the scientific the origin of it, and seeing that what are the way to handle it other than the regular process. So we are actually obviously ran out of time, but I have my own question, and at the same time, we ask some of our members if they have a specific one. Actually, I am here in Chennai to handle a very similar case, but the patient is very old. She is 90 years old. She stopped walking for last 2 months. So we're trying to make her walk and trying to understand why she is refusing to walk. Even though I know, so for an old patient who doesn't move, I know moving is one of the important aspect of our daily stability. Once you stop moving for a month or so, your body become psychologically think that you won't be able to do it. So you have any special technique for a old people?
So that's what. So what is more important here is you have got to know where is the pathology. Is it an acute inflammatory pathology? Because we cannot overdo anything.
Yes.
So whenever we want to train a person, we have got to go from LKG, UKG, first standard, second standard. So what
Yes.
I have shown is everything. So this cannot be tailor-made for everyone. So
Yes.
initially we have got to find out where is the point, where is the pathology. So ideal, easiest way what I can advise is, so initially there will be a lot of stiffness.
Yes.
So elderly especially, there will be a lot of stiffness, and the stiff structure, if you immediately stretch and ask them to do this, sometimes they might overdo and even tear their structures, tear their tissue.
Yes.
So that should not happen. Once the tissue becomes torn, then to getting it healed becomes another 3 to 4 weeks. So you have got to be rested. The treatment of a tear is totally different than the treatment of stretching. So what we have got to do initially is, so we have got to analyze or assess what is the amount of mobility that joints have got. So if the joints are very stiff, then we have got to get the mobility first.
Right.
So for that, best method is, so you can just do this exercise what I have now given it here. So this
Yes.
exercise, so this that's a previous exercise. So this one. Okay. So this exercise can be done. This exercise can be done in a water. So they can take a hot water of our 3/4 filled water. So give a little bit of salt into that. So
Right.
dip it inside and then keep moving. So maybe if 10 minutes, 50, they have got to count. So every rotations, 10 counts. If you just ask them to do just like that, they will not do. So there has to be some kind of a target for them. So if the target is meant, they will be happy. So initially they say, okay, 5 times you can do. If you are not able to do 10 times, do 5 times. So if you are able to do 5 times, improve it to 10 times. If you are able to 10 times, do it 20 times.
Yes.
So repeatedly doing it within the water. So what is going to happen? This is what is called as a hydrotherapy. Now, if you just go into depth of all this, there are a lot of things to discuss and then teach out.
Okay.
So initial phases, you have got to make the joints more supple before stretching them. So we have got to make the tissue conducive for stretching. So if it is a structure which is very tight, so we have got to make it soft. So by that, so what we have got to do, we just dip it in a hot water with a salt into that. So dip it inside, do this exercise. So here we are not putting any weight. So there is no chance that we go for a tearing of the structure. A very safe one. Then once they are doing it, then they will be doing for
Other
weight.
things.
So
Okay.
on the stretching exercise, they will be doing.
One thing you haven't mentioned about the Ayurvedic oil massage. That also sometimes helps. Do you have any experience on oil massage and exercises together?
So this oil massage, what is it going to do? So it does have some kind of, so one thing is it could be an anti-inflammatory, because whenever the tissues are inflamed or injured, all the injured tissues usually heal by inflammation. Inflammation means swelling.
Right.
So if the swelling happens, the tissues become more stiff. So most main treatment target is to reduce that inflammation. So reduction of inflammation, we have a mnemonic called as PRISE, P-R-I-S-E. So P is for protection, protect the tissue which is inflamed. R is for rest, so don't overdo it, so rest that tissue. I is for ice packing, icing of that particular area so that the edema and inflammation comes down. So there is a lot of new blood vessels which are going in, so that they have to be more calm, icing. Then C for compression bandaging. The swelling should not happen. We have got to initially do a compression bandaging and reduce that edema by elevation. E is for elevation. So protection, resting, icing, compression, elevation, price. So this is what we have got to do in the initial phase where there's an acute inflammation. Once that inflammation comes down, inflammation usually takes around 2 to 3 weeks for the inflammation to subside. So we've got to do this in the initial phase. So in this phase, maybe some amount of oil massage. So massaging from distal to proximal for improving the vascularity, to reducing the edema. Massage definitely helps in reducing edema. So you've got two different channels for drainage of the tissue fluid. One fluid is the little bit of heavier molecules, which are the proteins, and other tissue fluid is the smaller water molecules of sodium, potassium, and all that. So this can be usually these tissues. The heavier one goes through the lymphatic channel, the one which is the lighter one which goes through the venous channel. So this drainage also will improve, especially with the massaging.
Okay.
So these massage oils also has got some kind of anti-inflammatory oils being added on to that. Maybe to some extent will also reduce. So that is actually the importance of this massaging oil and then application. And it just additionally gives you some amount of psychology also. So somebody is giving treatment for you, somebody is caring for you. So all this also very important, not just taking tablet.
Exactly. Excellent explanation for my personal question. I think some of you must also faced it. So any other questions from any of these participants? So I'll open to others.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm from Pune. Sir, regarding retrocalcaneus tenure, we are saying about the tendon Achilles, that the plantar is continuously flexed, right?
Yeah.
So, with regular practice of dorsiflexion will help in this case?
Yeah, definitely. I just told you the initial exercise. So what I
Flexion
told
should
you,
be promoted while exercising.
so previous
Am I
one.
right?
So this can be done for strengthening. For strengthening, this can be done. Of
Right.
course, this heel walking, it will be very difficult for them to do. So before doing that, they have got to make it softer. Like you can take a hot water with the salt, dip it inside. So make the tissue more soft. So you can just dip it in the water for 10 to 15 minutes. Once the tissue becomes soft, then it will become more supple and they will be able to take it up further. So this is the exercise that I was telling you. This stretching exercise you'll be able to do only once the whole tissue becomes soft. So before doing this, we have got to dip that foot in hot water with the salt and then make it a little more softer, and the pain will not be there. Otherwise, if you just do directly like that, especially elderly, so there is a chance that they might even tear their tendon.
Oh. So if the tendon Achilles is very tight, directly dorsiflexion should not be promoted. Before
Promoted. See, it is all self-controlled. So what is happening? So you will be able to do only so much. So if you are able to do only this much, and you force it, that means restriction. So why is able to do only this much? Because it is tight and it causes pain for him. He is not able to do more because of the pain. So pain actually is good. So under the pain control, that is a control switch. So maximum pain. So whatever pain that he can tolerate, he will be able to do. So maybe he is able to tolerate only up to this level. And tomorrow he will be able to tolerate up to this stretch. The next day he will be able to tolerate so much. And first itself, if you go to a physiotherapist and he just forces, he forces himself like that, then there's a chance of tearing.
tearing of the ligament, right?
So self, if it is done, the person himself does it, and the pain is the control. So with the controlled pain, so you should not take any painkiller and then do it more. It's not required. So you can do a hydrotherapy, make it soft, and then so try to do it yourself as a pain as a control. So then slowly, because these are all come not just 1 day or 2 days. So these tissues have become tight after so many years of sitting with a plantar flex foot like that, or walking with the toes with the long heels. Only then it will become. So it will not come directly like that. So if you want to do within 1 week or 2 weeks, you have got to open it out and lengthen this tighten structure. That is also there. So if some person is not able to do it, not able to stretch, not able to understand, we can do a surgery and lengthen him. That is also there. That's actually a surgical treatment.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I have, I think, just one more question we can allow because already out of time. Anybody else like to raise a question before we close the session?
Yeah, I would like to have a question.
Please, Shabiji.
Dr. Mrityunjay, yeah, you are you can just unshare your screen so that we can see you. So what my question was, yes, we get some skeletal disorders. For that, yoga helps, not only helps, but it is a therapy too. That's what your practice is saying. Are many of the musculoskeletal disorders related to lifestyle disorders too?
Lifestyle postures. So bad posture, bad sitting. So actually for prevention, so once I just not just only therapy that is required. Now we have got to analyze what is his profession, how he is sitting. So depending on that, we have got to treat him. So once he becomes normal, and if he continues to do the same kind of posture, then again he just goes on for the same problem. So aligning him and then correcting his posture will give a longer recovery. So we have got to give importance for even the modifications of chair. So if he's sitting too high, so not able to sit, so you have got to adjust his height of the chair, so height of the backrest, so height of the arm rest. So this ergonomics also comes into the way of management, ergonomical therapy. So it is not just only therapy, so it is ergonomics. That is where we live, where we sit, how we stand, how we walk. So all this methodology or even the way we work also depends on the structure. So if you are doing in a wrong posture, that will lead to, so if I just do all the time like that, this structure becomes tight, this becomes long. And all the time I'm just keeping it down and then reading and then doing all the computer work for hours together, 6 hours, 8 hours I'm doing without stretching it back. Once we stretch it out, all the structures becomes longer, and once it goes back, the whole joint becomes unstable. It cannot tolerate. So that's what in between
yeah.
you have got to stretch it out.
Yeah.
So relax it and then come back. So
I got your message. So right postures and wrong postures one has to understand. So in your next talk, I would also request you to focus on 5 minutes about right and wrong postures. So that will be a solution for many of us. Unknowingly, many times we take wrong postures and keep on working. One more thing I wanted to ask in general, which will be very beneficial to all. When I see my diabetic patients in my OPD, many of the times, many of the doctors have told them, "Tumhara ye jo pain hai, the pain is due to diabetes." But whereas his blood sugars are perfectly controlled. So my question is, a patient who is diabetic, whose blood sugars are completely in good control, is there any extra chance of getting extra pain, or it's equal to everybody?
Pain is not a disorder or something which has to be suffered. Now we have got to know where exactly is this pain, what is the origin of the pain. Only when you test it, and as I told you, if there are what structure is the painful, on that painful area, if you just check it out and see whether there is an instability, the muscles are weak in some particular area, so some tissues or ligaments are stretched out, or the ligaments are not in an alignment, joint is not in an alignment, that could be the possible condition. And once we tone up and then stretch it out and balance the whole joint, that pain will disappear. That is one condition. And many times, many of these people, even if uncontrolled diabetes actually is one of the reason for pain. And many times I diagnose diabetes and send them to physician, because they will never know that they have got diabetes. They come with pain, either a tennis elbow pain or the heel pain or the foot pain. So we just tell them, because all this what is called as enthesitis. So enthesitis actually is one of the presenting symptom of diabetes. So when we check their blood sugar, they would have a raised sugar. So for them, we ask them to control their diabetes and then do this some kind of a small kind of therapies, then slowly it disappears.
Thank you.
Diabetes control is a very important aspect in musculoskeletal system.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shamichi, and all the participants. First of all, I will also thank Dr. Mrityunjaya for really making a beautiful presentation on a unknown subject and make it such a wonderful scientific and easy to understand explanation, and given us a way how to handle it stage by stage. It's surely going to benefit us. And also we'd like to hear many such talk maybe in future when we get to know, when we will have enough time, we'll obviously announce you after talking to him. I request now Anirban to make some closing remarks before we closing our session. Over to Anirban, please.
Yeah, we have a special guest, Dr. Subrata. I messaged you, Dr. Dharmaram Punia, who is an oncosurgeon from AIIMS Rishikesh. I would request Swamiji to mention about Dr. Punia, and I would request Dr. Punia to unmute himself and perhaps speak a few words. To see him also, sir.
Dr. Dharmaram Punia is a oncosurgeon working at our prestigious institution AIIMS Rishikesh. We know each other, the good work that's being done at AIIMS Rishikesh and Ramakrishna Mission Haridwar. He is associated with our work here. Once in a month, team of oncosurgeons visit our hospital here, see patients, also meet our doctors and do conduct some webinars too. So I'm very happy that Dharmaram Punia is with us today. If possible, he can put on his video or he can just give a voice message what this integrated wellness based talk today focusing on musculoskeletal disorders by Dr. Mrutyunjay, what it means to him and what is his message to all the people.
Thank you so much for a nice welcome. And I was like listening, and it was quite pleasing that you people like coordinating that way. And it will be great. We people also like coordinate with you people. And we are already doing some trials on role of yoga for cancer recovery. I like our head and neck cancer patients receive a lot of radiation and all. They require a lot of effort from yoga people, exercise, everything. So that's what we are doing, sir, and it's really good, sir. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
So on behalf of CERIMED, I would like to give a message to Dharmaram. We are ready to do anything that is possible online. So whenever there is some possibility of doing yoga sessions for his patients online, they can always write to CERIMED. Thank you, Dharmaram Punia ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We can request Dr. Punia sometime to express his views in one of the talks in one of the coming sessions. We'll get in touch with him and we'll request him to share his views in this forum, what he feels about the integrated way of medicine.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
We will look forward to your talk also, sir, in future.
Great, sir. Thank you.
So over to you, Dr. Subrata. I think that's all we have. We are almost at.
You can close the session with your final remarks.
So we did have a good meeting today. Again, thanks to Dr. Mrutyunjay Swamiji for introducing Dr. Mrutyunjay to us, and we look forward to his session. There has been a lot of demands in the chat group coming from people asking for a encore of your session. We will have one more and a couple of more sessions from you. Perhaps maybe a week or two later, we'll again get in touch with you and we'll do that second part of your session where perhaps you had so much material which we could not share due to positive time, but we would do that in subsequent sessions from you. I hope it is okay with you, Dr. Mrutyunjay. We'll do it subsequently. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And look forward to see everyone on IWSP forum on 17th of September at 5 p.m. So once again, requesting everybody to log in, and you can get into CERIMED website, and there is a prominent IWSP section, Integrated Wellness Science and Practice. You can click that button and you will get the login form. We can also send it to you. We are constantly mailing everybody in our mailing list, and we are sending these forms. So request everybody to come and join the inaugural session, which is on 17th September at 5 p.m. And look forward to this great event, which is kind of flagship event for CERIMED going forward for the next 1 month. But of course, our alternate Sunday meetings will be continuing. We will have that event happening in full force, but Sunday meetings will be continuing every alternate Sunday. That is the information to the CERIMED members. Thank you very much, and good night to everybody. Thank you.